All right. Good evening, I guess, to our viewers watching in Europe. Good afternoon here on the East Coast, and good uh, afternoon, I guess, also on the West Coast. Good morning if you're in Hawaii. I guess we will leave it there. We are again on the precipice of another White House coronavirus press briefing expected, scheduled for 5 p.m. Who knows when it's really going to start. And I see people already reacting to what is increasingly out of control hair that I'm dealing with, and I expect we will be dealing with it for some time. For some time. We will update, of course, the latest global and U.S. coronavirus numbers. I'm going to talk a little bit about Sweden. I'm going to talk about obesity. I'm going to talk about the tuberculosis vaccine now being explored as something that might be useful in the fight against COVID-19. We are monitoring 3 different streams to see if at any point we have a view of what's happening in the press briefing room. I just read that now, starting today, the reporters in the press briefing room are being tested for COVID-19, and they are expected. I mean, what's the point if they can't have their results? But they're expected to get their results before the start of the press briefing, before they're allowed into the room. So we will continue to explore that. Let me say a few. I'm going to read a few super chats because they're already coming in, which I very much appreciate. And then I'm going to get to some of the different data, and all of that stuff. Andrew Dwyer says, we need you to teach your friend Kyle how to live stream with super chats. He was riding the struggle bus this morning, although his analysis was on point. Oh, I don't know what he was struggling just to stream, or I don't know. Thanks to Frank Drugsma and David Rossman for signing up on YouTube. Marie Telez sends a super chat. Krieg Saint sends a super chat. Zach Williams says, I'm a staunch Bernie supporter voting for Biden. I can't have Trump picking RBG's replacement. Who in their right mind would vote for him? Yeah, I have a 20-minute video, which we just published to my YouTube channel called Bernie Out an Analysis. And, the thing is, every time I do a 20-minute video on one topic, it gets very few views, but the people who watch it seem to appreciate it more. So in any case, consider checking out that. I'm not going to do any Bernie Biden stuff on this stream because we just published a 20-minute video about it to YouTube. And I will be directing all inquiries on that subject directly to the YouTube channel. Thanks to Okoyo Madrid for the super chat. Oh, are we getting some, did anything happen? No, we're still not live in the room. Thanks to Ashley Pearson, who says, hi from Louisiana. Keep doing a great job. Thanks, Ashley. Incredibo says, here's my support. Hope the David Pakman show is doing well. Ajamu Omawale says, watched Susan Rice on MSNBC explain how she prepped the White House. So sad, the lies Trump tells. Very much so. Derek Vandervoort says Falwell got arrest warrants issued for journalists who criticized him over reopening Liberty University. He is a disgrace to the Shenandoah Valley. Yes, he is. Thanks again to Marie Telez. Brooks Madden says, off topic, but how difficult is it to run your own show? How many hours a week do you work? How do you keep yourself motivated? The news keeps me motivated. Every day is a new day where I want to talk about what's going on. I work, it's certainly full time. It's a heavy full-time job, especially during coronavirus. There's a lot of 13-hour days between, prepping for the broadcast show, doing the business, supervising and working with our staff, doing the live stream, prepping for the next day's show. There's certainly long days. Arbuckle says, we'll see what happens included in bingo. It's not yet, but it probably, doing my hair also extends the day a lot. Yeah, it probably should be. We'll see what happens. Should probably be included, would be my guess. Okay, let's get to the latest numbers. Globally, we are now just shy of 1.6 million known cases, and we are rapidly approaching 6-figure death toll. The United States still very much number one and expected to remain that way, more than 3 times the number of cases of any other country, despite the fact that we aren't testing that much. Remember, if we sort by tests per capita, which is a term that eludes Donald Trump, we are currently in tests per capita 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43. We are currently 43rd globally in tests per capita. So for sure, this number is very, very low. The only upside to that number being low is that our death rate is actually lower than what the official numbers suggest. Let's now look at the official United States numbers in more detail. 462,000 cases, 16,000 deaths. Still New York and New Jersey playing a very, very big role in the cases, but Michigan, California, and Massachusetts are now climbing. Very important. You also have to look at tests per population here. When you look, for example, at my state, Massachusetts, compared to Pennsylvania, both have about 18,000 cases. In Massachusetts, we've tested 14,000 people for every million, whereas Pennsylvania has only tested 8,000 people. This testing disparity is a really big deal, and we need to continue to keep an eye on that as we think about where different states are in their curves, so to speak. Let's now go and look at the big picture numbers. It's starting to look like we are leveling off on new cases, but of course, you have to account for how much are we testing when we think about that. Active cases, of course, continue to climb. Eventually, more people will recover each day than get infected, and the number of active cases will start to decline. When we look at deaths, we had 2 very, very bad days, very bad days. As of right now, let me find the U.S. here briefly. As of right now, we are already at 1650 for the day. We've still got, many hours left here, and we will see where that comes out. At a certain point, this is going to turn around. We just don't know when. Lastly, the IHME model has not been updated today. As you can see here, it was last updated on April 8. Currently, we are 3 days from the peak, according to this model. That will be on April 12. The peak, of course, will really be a plateau where we will be over 2,000 deaths a day for something like 10 days. We will be over 1,500 deaths a day for what is expected to be, more like 3 weeks almost. So it's going to get very, very ugly. And the total death projections for wave 1, we'll talk about waves momentarily, 60,000 deaths. Almost all of those coming by May 25th-ish, May 21st-ish, somewhere in that range. Welcome. If you were just joining us, we are standing by for the White House press briefing. No update yet from Donald Trump on exactly when it will be taking place, scheduled for now, often delayed by 30 to 45 minutes. If anybody is aware of a stream that is in the room so we can see what's going on, let me know. Sometimes when I refresh, YouTube will suggest other streams. I'm not seeing any, but let me know. Let me know if anybody knows of a stream. This is the C-SPAN feed. They are not yet live. Washington Post is not live, and the White House stream is not live. So let me know. Okay. Oh, somebody recommending a stream here? Doesn't look like it. Okay, no, we don't have anything yet. Very good. Okay, other super chats coming in. Daniel Rivera says, what leftist policies do you think Biden would be open to? I will talk. I'm going to have a video about that on Monday. And as I said, I am not going to do any Bernie Biden Trump stuff today because we just published a 20-minute video about it. And I don't want to fill up the stream with it. Fox News Coronavirus Live. Someone says Fox News is live in the room. Let's take a look. Okay. I'd rather get away from Fox News once the stream starts. But, there we go. Very good. Okay, yeah. Once again, they are working on lighting. And the room very, very empty so far. Oh, and Fox is announcing that they have actually pushed back to 6 p.m. Wow. Okay. All right. Well, we've got some time to do stuff and discuss things in that case. Allison Leibengood has subscribed on YouTube. Daniel Krieger says, is it relevant that the U.S. is 7th in cases per capita? It is relevant, but again, when we're only 43rd in testing per capita, our cases per capita number is also going to be very, very skewed. Matt Bond says, my head hurts from trying to tell Trumpists that stock from Obama's years would probably be out of date. They don't get masks have expiration dates. Yeah, but I don't, let's see, N95 mask expiration date. I think it's very, very long. Let's see here. People aside from professionals, still effective. May offer protection. Expiration dates, effective use. Right, it's a question of the seal, it appears. But even expired masks still provide protection, it appears. Yeah, I'm not taking a position on the concept of the expiration. I mean, I don't deny that there is an expiration date. I'm just not taking a position on the effectiveness of an expired mask at this point. I just don't know enough about it right now. Darren says, hey, David, my own country's prime minister got a pat on the back from across all parties, even though he is what he is. Would Donald get the same treatment, do you think? Well, it's not a fair question unless we have similar behavior. We can't say Trump is going to get the same treatment and both parties would say X, Y, or Z. If Trump did a unanimously good job, I think he would get compliments from everybody. He's done, in some ways he's done okay, in some ways he's done terribly. Zachary Monroe says, David, I don't like Biden and I hate Trump. Are there any third-party candidates you think have a chance if they get enough of the votes? No, it's Biden or Trump. The next president will be Biden or Trump. Again, unless one of the candidates dies or falls into a coma, it's Biden or Trump. 5-1 says, your hair is da bomb. Here is $2. Hag Sameach. Thank you. Myth Smithy says, thanks for virtual companionship. New member from Montreal. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, let's look at a few other things. There is a new report that obesity is a major coronavirus risk factor. Now, implicitly, we suspected this, especially when you look at the comorbidities. Many of them are highly associated with obesity. And there is now a statement from the chief epidemiologist in France who said yesterday that obesity is a major factor, and that even when you look at the mortality rate, it is skewed towards those who are obese, and every indication that this was the case all along. And if the U.S. ends up with a disproportionately high birth rate, I would death rate from the virus, it wouldn't be shocking that it may be connected to the high obesity rate in the United States. And when you look at other countries with a high obesity rate, Mexico, for example, off the top of my head, I don't remember what the other high obesity rate countries are. It would not be at all surprising that there is a connection there. Second thing I wanted to talk about today, there is now more and more discussion of a second wave of COVID-19. And for better or for worse, whatever we believe about the trustworthiness of Chinese data on cases and deaths doesn't really matter at this point. What is very clear is that we are starting to learn, including from Chinese reports, if nothing else, that the second wave is very likely to be a thing. Dr. Anthony Fauci has been talking about this. A lot of different health experts have been talking about it. By every indication, when we say that the model predicts 60,000 deaths by August, this is wave one. And we believe that there will be a second wave that may coincide with the flu season, which I think the flu season, at least in much of the north of the United States, starts in early October-ish, I think. Going into November, which is when people are going to be voting, of course, that there is going to be a second wave and then potentially a third wave in 2021. By fall of 2020, 6-7 months from now, we are unlikely to have we're not going to have a vaccine. I don't even know why I say unlikely. We're not going to have a vaccine unless, Anthony Fauci sort of teased the idea. Maybe there could be, if there is a very high efficacy signal from a vaccine, maybe you could move it up a few months, but it still likely would be, 2021, not maybe just not late 2021, early 2021. We will hopefully, by the end of the second wave, have some therapeutic treatments, antivirals, other things that could be tested. We just don't know yet. A lot of these randomized controlled trials are happening now. So it is again going to be social distancing and closing down that is going to prevent wave two. How the timing of that second wave will interact with the presidential election here in the United States, we don't know. And that in and of itself may well be weaponized. We just don't know yet. And there is every indication Trump would try to weaponize it, preventing vote by mail, et cetera, et cetera. But this issue of wave two now is starting to be written about. And I think this is really important. There's a lot of people that are thinking in 6 weeks, we're going to be fully back to normal. As Anthony Fauci said, things will not really be back to normal until we have a vaccine. And that's not going to be until 2021. What else did I have? Okay. This is an article from the Conservative National Review. And this article, for political reasons, argues that Sweden did the right thing. Sweden took a more libertarian approach. Sweden only did the isolation for the at-risk people. Sweden left bars and restaurants open to a great degree. Sweden continued to allow young people to run rampant through the country. The idea being the young people would build herd immunity, maybe, but the economy would keep going and we would isolate the most vulnerable people. I don't know whether it is or isn't working, and I'll explain why. If we go back to our worldometers.info data and we look at Sweden, where is Sweden here? Sweden right now officially has 9,100 cases and almost 800 deaths. So right away you see that Sweden has an almost 10% death rate. That doesn't strike me as working well. But at the same time, Sweden isn't testing very much. Sweden is testing even less than the United States. Sweden is taking a sort of laissez-faire approach to some degree. So considering how little Sweden is testing and the fact that they're isolating the people that are more at risk and letting young people sort of run wild, maybe Sweden has 30,000, 40, 50, I don't know what the number would be, a huge number of asymptomatic or mild cases that never get tested. Maybe Sweden's doing okay. I just don't know. I think that the right-wing media outlets that are promoting what Sweden is doing from a libertarian ideological perspective, they don't really have the data to make the call. But I don't think we have the data either, because part of what Sweden is doing is not testing very much. So I'd be interested in seeing more actual data out of Sweden, data that we just don't have right now. So you can check out that article on National Review, which is, of course, a biased right-wing publication, and they are reporting this for ideological reasons. Last thing, on therapeutics, there is a new study which is suggesting that chloroquine, Trump's favorite treatment, is not working super well. As you know, I have no fear of telling you about chloroquine. I told you about chloroquine 10 days before Trump did, but I also told you about Avigan, remdesivir, and a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm not ideologically or emotionally attached to any possible treatment. We have a new study that says chloroquine really may not be working super well. There's a new idea that the tuberculosis vaccine from 100 years ago could work against coronavirus, not as a vaccine per se, important, but because of the immune system boosting effect that the tuberculosis vaccine may have. This is being looked at very strongly here in Massachusetts. This is Dr. Denise Faustman, Director of Immunobiology at Mass General in Boston, one of the premier medical institutions in the country, if not the world. She has been studying a tuberculosis vaccine known as BCG and its effect on diabetes. The idea that the tuberculosis vaccine may boost the immune response and be effective against other conditions has been studied for a long time by folks like Dr. Faustman, and it is now being looked at, called the Bacillus Calmette-Guerin vaccine, still being looked at now as something that it's not a vaccine for coronavirus, but it may have an immune system boosting response, which could work. Scientists in Melbourne, Australia are using it versus placebo. Folks, we're doing it right. These are proper studies. You have to give a placebo. Ideally, it's randomized, etc. The idea is test it for coronavirus versus a placebo. Now, some people are pointing out you don't want an overactive immune system. That's absolutely true. And in fact, we've seen some studies about certain, for lack of a better term, elements of medical. I hate to use that term, but it's sort of appropriate here. I don't even want to name them because there's also fake news spreading, but we've seen a response in some people where their immune system goes overboard, and it's not good for dealing with coronavirus. That's not the idea of the tuberculosis vaccine, is not to make the immune system go overboard. It's merely to get it functioning in a way that could reduce the likelihood of a severe case of coronavirus. It's being tested. It's being tested. And again, I have no emotional attachment to any particular path on this. I am open to all. Okay, let me say thank you to a bunch of people. All right, Triple G Dog has subscribed with Prime on Twitch. 24 pounds has gifted a subscription on Twitch. Qualia07 has subscribed for 9 months. We have very few 9-month subscribers on Twitch, but thank you. Says Biden is going to lose in the general. I don't know. I'm not pretending to know. Also want to say thanks to Twilight Crush and Kalinas for signing up on Twitch. I very much appreciate that. Okay, let's look at some of the super chats that have been coming in. Let me see here. Daniel Rivera says, friend James H. loves your show, and he asked, how is it we have a growing stock market with 16 million people unemployed? 2 answers. Pick the answer you like. Answer 1 is speculation. The stock market at this point, because of uncertainty, is very much subject to traders pushing it up and down for their own benefit, and it's completely disconnected from what's going on in the economy. That's one explanation. The second explanation would be the unemployment numbers were already priced in. If you believe in something called efficient market theory, which, it's like the thing about a lot of these economics theories are that there is some truth to them, but they are not all encompassing. I believe that efficient markets theory, strictly speaking, is bogus, but there is some degree to which it represents a reality. If you already anticipate 16 million losing their jobs, when you learn about that, the stock market goes down. The stock market then reflects the belief that there will be 16 million lost jobs. So when we get 3 and then 6 and then 6, the stock market had already priced it in. So you don't necessarily, in fact, confirming the estimates were right could push the stock market back up. I'm giving you like neoclassical economic propaganda here, to be very clear. But with many of these economic theories, there is some truth, but they are not perfect. I don't remember who it was that said it, but if it's some, let me see if I can find it. $20 bill efficient market. There's a funny, I want to get this right because, okay, there's an old story. Okay, 2 people are walking down the street. One stops and says, look, there's a $20 bill on the ground. The economist turns and without looking down says, not possible. If there was a $20 bill on the ground, somebody would have already picked it up. That is the epitome or a microcosm of efficient market hypothesis. So in some cases, it obviously is not accurate. And for all the people in the chat saying, David, you're repeating things that have been completely disproven, they've been disproven as being 100% correct. These are not invalid theories, but they simply don't represent everything that we now know about economics. Behavioral economics has drastically changed our understanding of a lot of these things. Okay, if you're joining me on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, or Facebook, I have a new thing that we are going to try today. So for the last week or so, I've been limiting myself during the streams to 1 pitch for membership. And it's been going well, but it's been diminishing a little bit each day. In the last 24 hours, I got emails from 3 people who had very similar ideas. And they essentially came to me and they said, David, I can lift my chair. Now that my hair has gone down a little bit, I can lift my chair. I was sitting a little too low before. People came to me and they said, David, you should do an experiment during your next live stream. You are certainly starting to saturate the number of website members on your stream because you can only really sign up once. That's not totally true, but most people are only going to sign up once on your website. And the minimum buy-in is $2 a month. You should do one stream where you only promote Patreon for two different reasons. Number one, the buy-in on Patreon is just $1 a month. If there's some number of people who can afford $2 a month, there's way more people who can afford $1 a month. So that's one reason. The second idea was you might come across a lot of people who are already members, but would still make a Patreon pledge to you. So we're going to test that today. I'm going to mention this one time. You will notice that the bar above my head today doesn't say anything about website memberships. All it says is Patreon patrons. And the URL is patreon.com/David Pakman Show. It is true that there is $1 minimum. So we lost 389 members, unfortunately, in March because a lot of people are struggling with the virus. We've lost several dozen already in April. If you appreciate the streams and you're not down to your last dollar, I don't want anyone's last dollar. Consider going over to patreon.com/David Pakman Show or just Google David Pakman Show Patreon, and you can pledge any amount you want or just a single dollar. I'm going to thank everybody. We've never done this before. It truly could be an absolute disaster. There could be something special about my audience where my audience hates Patreon. I don't know. And it could be an absolutely embarrassing fiasco. But I also heard from people who said, David, you might be able to hit 100 patrons because a lot of people have accounts already and they'll very easily throw $1 at you. So that is the request for today. Patreon.com/David Pakman Show. We're at 0. No, we're not. I want to say thanks to Give. Give has made a pledge of $2 on Patreon. So we are at 1 out of 25. Let's test it. Let's test it and see. And you may very quickly see me back to never mentioning Patreon again on tomorrow's stream if it doesn't go well. Okay. Other super chats coming in. Sebastian Wilkins says, looks like the isolation is getting to David. It is getting to me, but I don't have anywhere to go to get a haircut. And why even bother shaving? You know, like, what's the point? This is the best beard I've ever been able to grow. It's pathetic. My testosterone's fine. It's been checked. It has nothing to do with that. It's just, this is the beard. This is the beard. So it's not so much that it's getting to me. I'm just living with it day by day. Each day I wake up and I say, should I shave today? And then I say, of course not. Why would I shave? It doesn't make any sense. Mecca101 says, let's get hashtag COVID-19 hair trending. Paul JM says, could you comment on claims that the WHO is biased towards China? Love the show. Yeah, I mean, there does seem to be at least some evidence that the WHO is China-centric the right word, as Donald Trump said? I don't know. Per Tiran says birth rate. I think that's a Freudian slip. Are you girlfriend moody? Just kidding. Love from Sweden. Thank you, Per. Donna Williams says obese patients have a more difficult time recovering from any respiratory illness. I'm an RT, respiratory therapist. Thank you for all you do. Very interesting, Donna. Very interesting. Waller is me says Sweden less tests per capita, fewer, more deaths per capita compared to the US. Trump wouldn't understand this. Yep. Like I mentioned before. Let's see here. Stephen Kenneth Destiny Bennell, who is really the user formerly known as Hugh Jass, who is really the user formerly known as Alex Jones, is again telling me about, things related to destiny and all this stuff. I don't care. Whatever, say whatever you want. I'm not worried about it. What else do we have here? Oh, I missed a bunch. Matthew Vicendese says Australia is close to a vaccine. Check out difference between compartmental models and agent-based models by James Jansen. Yeah, there's a lot of places that are close, but the human testing takes a while. All right, let's thank some patrons here. This is going to be very exciting. We're doing a patron-only test today. Let me say thank you to oh boy, we're already in trouble. Kalani Helikunihi, oh boy, is patron number 2 today. Mario and Christina are patrons number 3. Charlie Kelly is patron number 4. Piano Man is patron number 5. Raphael Marin is patron number 6 today. Rachel Gerstner is patron number 7. Austin Clark is patron number 8 today. Kelly Barnes is patron number 9. Fabian Peterson is patron number 10 today. Scarlet Babylon is patron number 11. Robert Clobber. See, the advantage to Patreon is people more frequently use handles instead of real names. So you get things like Robert Clobber, who's patron number 12. Mystique Lady is patron number 13. Ed Spencer is number 14. Ernesto Fidalgo. Whoops, I think I did something wrong there. Number 15. There we go. Got it. Ernesto, that was my grandfather's name. Ernesto Fidalgo is number 15. Melanie Bronov is a new patron number 16 today. Eponus Tribe is new patron number 17. And Eliseo Alvarez is new patron number 18. We're doing a one-day test where instead of memberships, we're doing Patreon pledges at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. We are standing by for today's White House coronavirus press briefing, scheduled originally for 5 p.m. Eastern, rescheduled for 6 p.m. Eastern. Let me see if Donald Trump has tweeted anything about it. Nope. Trump's last tweet was about the Wall Street Journal being fake news. Fake news, of course, a favorite phrase of the president. Let me say thank you to Bernie Cohn-Marie, who has gifted a subscription on Twitch, as well as Zonstein Willie and P-Funk Apocalypse, all of whom have subscribed over on Twitch Prime. I had a couple other things that I wanted to go over with you guys. Let me see if I can find them here. I'm pulling up my notes. And where is it? Okay, here it is. Yeah. So we've got a clip coming out about this later today. Republican Congressman Dan Crenshaw was interviewed by Joe Rogan. And Crenshaw just completely imploded on the issue of healthcare. And this is really good. Let's see if we can go through a little bit of this. And we're going to try to pick apart some of the very, very bad arguments that were made. We have plenty of time until the press conference starts. So let's check this out. Let's take a look at it.
It tries to move past these essential foundations, whether of a free society that we have to adhere to. And because the other thing I push back on a little bit is the healthcare is a right statement. And I push back against that because when you're calling something a right, what you're effectively saying is that somebody else has a obligation to serve you. And it's hard to call something a right when that...
So that should remind you of Rand Paul. Libertarian Senator Rand Paul has said, you make doctors slaves with single payer.
Right requires the service of somebody else.
Don't we already do that?
Nitpicky.
Don't we already do that with the firemen? Don't we do that with the police department? Don't we do that with public schools?
Not exactly. No, I mean we have public services that I would distinguish those public services from something like a direct point of care, and I would distinguish them to an enormous extent. Like, and here's why: you can add a few 100,000 more people to the nation's population, and it doesn't change the mission of the military, right? Like it doesn't take anything away from them. But because of this sort of non-rival, this is like an economics term, but this sort of non-rival attribute of these things, it is different.
So
right? Because
now he's arguing, and this is important. Dan Crenshaw is arguing that healthcare is not a public good in the same way that all of these other things are, and that healthcare as a right would reduce freedom in some way. Now, this is bogus. You have a right to an attorney. You have a right to an attorney. That doesn't mean any one attorney is enslaved by needing to represent you, but you have a right to an attorney when you are accused, regardless of your ability to pay. Are lawyers slaves at this point? No. And in the same way, we already have, you know, if you go to an emergency room, there's a law from 1986 which says the hospital has to provide stabilizing emergency treatment for you, whether or not you can pay. Have doctors been slaves since 1986? No. So this is a terrible argument. And now Crenshaw starts to fall apart, and he goes into Gish Gallop, which is when you throw a bunch of different arguments at the wall to see what sticks.
There's only select number of doctors. And we've already said that once you put price controls in, there's going to be less doctors because doctors will be paid less. They'll get burned out more. Then hospitals will be able to, I actually never finished that point. The reason price controls reduce supply and the reason we see supply reductions in other countries is because, well, hospitals don't get the.
So notice how without Joe Rogan really doing anything, he has shifted from saying Medicare for all reduces freedom to Medicare for all does other things. It'll reduce the available supply of health. You know, he's going into totally unrelated arguments.
Same amount of money. They're not going to invest in that extra ICU bed. They're not going to buy those extra ventilators. They're not going to hire those other doctors. A doctor doesn't want to be a doctor because they don't make the amount of money that they thought they would make.
Now we've got a third argument, which is doctor compensation would be a problem under Medicare for all. Notice how, listen, these are all hypothetically valid things to talk about. Other countries have figured all of them out. But the argument was about freedom. That imploded. He's now on arguments 3 and 4.
Doing extra work because there's more people who now have access to them, but there's less of them. So wait lines are huge, and they're seeing multiple more patients a day.
So now we've shifted. So the term I used was Gish Gallop. Gish Gallop is when you throw a whole bunch of stuff at someone, and it's too crazy either because of time limits or practicality to really think through each of them and keep them separate. He's now into wait times. Again, talking about wait times is not invalid, but they're now on the 4th or 5th different argument.
Doctor burnout increases quite a bit. That's the quick answer.
And now he's talking about doctor burnout.
As to why that happens. But does that kind of answer your question?
No.
I'm getting really.
That does.
Deep on this.
Yeah, the human right issue. We kind of moved around with that.
So Joe Rogan correctly pointing out, what happened to the real issue we were talking about?
The idea that it's different than the fire department or the police department or...
Yeah. Well, it's not a right either, actually. The fire department's not necessarily a right as we would...
But it's a public service that's provided to everyone.
So now, and you're going to see this continue, Crenshaw shifts to some very pedantic, semantic arguments about what we call things. So if those aren't really rights, then when we say healthcare is a right, maybe we also aren't literally saying it's a right, but we consider it a public good. Now he's getting into semantic distortions.
It is, but understand. So let's call it a public service then, and let's call doctor healthcare a public service.
That's what Joe was suggesting 5 minutes ago when you said it was different.
Okay.
Well, if we were to do Medicare for all.
But wouldn't the result be the same if it's provided for everyone?
Not from a practical standpoint, just because it's much easier. Again, you could add 100,000 people more to your city, and the fire department would have marginally more work to do.
So now that's not an argument about principle. Understand, and I know that this stuff, it's even difficult to follow it because it's all over the place. He has gone from an ideological argument about Medicare for all or single payer, reduce freedom and effectively enslave doctors, to now saying it would just be practically difficult because there'd be a lot more people who want healthcare. That's a completely different argument. It's an unrelated argument.
Compared to like a doctor, for instance. Does that make sense? Like,
no.
It doesn't. I think if we're trying to compare them in that sense, that non-rival attribute matters quite a bit.
I actually think he keeps slipping in non-rival is an economic term. And I think he keeps slipping it in because he suspects Joe Rogan's not going to engage with it, probably because it's not a term Joe knows. It's not even, okay, it's a common economic term to some degree, but it's not as common as supply and demand, right? Or elasticity. And I think he keeps mentioning it to try to circumvent, like, listen, you don't even understand what this term means, so we're not really going to be able to engage.
That correctly.
I see. So what you're saying is because competition is necessary with medical innovation, and also like doctors profit off of being exceptional. So they have incentive to be exceptional.
No. What I'm saying is if you have if you have 10 doctors that are serving a community, every time that doctor is serving somebody, it means somebody else can't see them.
Well, isn't that just a signal that we need more doctors and more hospitals?
Right. And not only that, again, I want to remind everybody, there's a 1986 law, I have it here, called the Emergency Medical Treatment and Active Labor Act. Mandates hospitals provide stabilizing emergency treatment to patients and baby delivery services to women in active labor, no matter whether they can pay. Why isn't Dan Crenshaw, why aren't all of them saying that the 1986 Emergency Medical Treatment Act enslaves doctors? If a woman comes in labor and they have to provide her baby delivery services, someone else isn't getting treatment, right? I mean, that's the argument, and no one is going after the 1986 Act because, of course, it doesn't actually enslave doctors. Now, let me skip forward a little bit here where they get into some completely delusional stuff. And it just becomes a semantic debate. Here we go.
Right, but we're talking about you're talking about socialism overall, not just just involving medicine. You're talking about socialism in general, and I'm saying, isn't the fire department an example of socialism that works?
Well, it's definitely not an example of socialism. I think it's an example of a public good, the way the military is an example of a public good, the way the highways are examples of public goods, the way parks are examples of public goods. Right, but
they're funded by the people. It's funded by people overall, and it doesn't cost people money to use them. And the people have these as a basic part of our society and our civilization.
No, I understand that, and I have no problem with that. I just would not call them socialists.
Well, what would you call the fire department? How does it get funded?
It's a public good.
How does it get funded?
It's a public good. It's funded by the public,
right?
And it's not relying on it's not relying on the tenets of socialism to function. And so now we're kind of having a discussion of definitions, and this is an important discussion to have because oftentimes even Democrats aren't really talking about socialism.
Right. Well, even Bernie Sanders doesn't call it.
That's exactly right. So we've come completely back around to a conversation that is merely about the labels, and he's conceding really none of this stuff is actually socialist. It's so just circular. And Joe, what I think is interesting about this is that Joe Rogan describes himself not as a politics guy. He says he's interested in politics, but that he's not. In fact, he was very nice and yesterday said, I'm a politics guy, and he named a few other people. So Joe Rogan isn't reacting with talking points. He's reacting with, Dan, what you're saying really doesn't make any sense. And it's a genuine reaction. And that's what is just so fascinating about this. I really only watched this section here, which producer Pat had flagged for me. And we have a segment on it coming out later. But very, very, all of these arguments just very quickly falling apart under just basic questioning from Joe Rogan. Okay, let me thank a bunch of other patrons today. Let me see where we are. Okay, Nick Harper is new patron number 19 today. We're going for 100. Lunch Money is new patron number 20 today. Fazal Chowdhury is new patron number 21 today. Linda Garth is number 22. Carol is new patron number 23. Charles Hess is new patron number 24. Amy is new patron number 25. On that note, we're just going for 100, and if we fail, it'll be embarrassing. JJ Hitchcock is new patron number 26. Kim Lukanen is new patron 27. Jose Bruna is number 28. Beverly Weber is number 29. Maureen Henry is number 30. Faylad is new patron number 31. Trevor Patterson is number 32. Lynn Kibblemom, love that, is number 33. Zachary Monroe is number 34. Aaron Madsen is new patron number 35. Lila Wyoming is patron number 36. Truistic Prince is new patron 37. And Christy Jones is new patron number 38. Love it. Very, very compelling stuff. Okay, other questions and super chats coming in. Brody Andrew Mulligan says, thank you, Pat, Max, and Noah. Love from Dallas. Thanks, Brody. Altaira Wilson says, can you tell me what Louisiana is doing per capita? Yeah, let's take a look. Let's take a look at Louisiana. Okay, USA. So in terms of cases per population, Louisiana is third with 3,900. In terms of deaths per population, Louisiana is also third. And in terms of tests per population, Louisiana is doing a lot of testing, 18,000, almost as much as New York. The more testing per capita, the more closely those numbers mirror like the full scope of what is going on within any particular state. David Packman, Germany branch office headquarters, says, hey, David, could ever someone with similar personality like Angela Merkel become president of the United States? Congrats to your excellent show. I mean, listen, if someone with Trump's personality can become president, I would not pretend to know that any particular personality would be off limits for the presidency. Thanks to William Kennedy. Zach Williams says, just watched your video about Bernie dropping. I agree with you 1,000,000%. Have $5. Yes, if you're watching on YouTube right now, please hit like and subscribe before you do anything else. But we do have a 20-minute video that I published about an hour and a half ago on YouTube, where I talk about the Bernie Biden Trump situation, and I encourage everybody to check it out. Thanks to Martin Van Gorp, who says, "'Cause you deserve it." Cameron Welty has signed up. Danny Thompson says, people receiving the federal unemployment $600 per week here in Minnesota. My 30 plus years in tax need to give a warning. This money, as well as any state money, will be reported to the IRS on a 1099-G. $1,200 stimulus is not taxable. Unemployment is. Yes, very important. So let's break this down. I'm going to provide you guys with some data. There was a rumor, a very nasty rumor that was spreading that the $1,200 stimulus money is taxable as income on your 2020 tax return. This is not true. What's going to happen is that on your 2020 tax return, if I understand correctly, and I'm guessing Danny can correct me if I'm wrong, the $1,200 in stimulus will be reported as money coming in, and you will get a $1,200 credit, meaning it is not taxable. Every dollar of that money you get back as a credit. So it's a wash. It's a way to report it and to keep track of who has received the money. So for a while, there was a rumor that it's just going to be taxable. You're going to owe you're going to owe income tax on the $1,200. That is not true. It was a nasty, nasty rumor, but it is not true. Unemployment insurance is taxable. Unemployment insurance is taxable as income. You will need to report it. Some states give you the option of having taxes withheld from your unemployment money as if it was, W-2 income or whatever the case may be. It is conceivable that the government could do any number of one-time things. So, if the standard deduction is $12,000, the government could say for the 2020 tax year, the standard deduction is $18,000. That would exempt an additional few $1,000s that people may have received in unemployment or not, right? Like the government could do things like that, but the $1,200 stimulus is not taxable. It'll be a wash because of the credit. Unemployment insurance income is taxable. Now, the only thing I don't know is unemployment insurance income always taxable at the state level? Well, I guess certain states don't have income tax at all. I'm guessing in those states it would not be taxable. Are there any states with an income tax that exempt unemployment income from taxation? I don't know the answer to that. Jamal Swift says, hey, homie. Hey, Jamal. Appreciate the support. Shannon Bennis says, so strange that right-wing media has seized on hydroxychloroquine. It is. Greg Oliver has signed up. Keaton Klepper says, David, would you vote for Borat if he was DNC candidate? No, I am not a vote blue no matter who person. I am I'm a person who evaluates the candidates and says, who do I prefer? So when I say I'm voting for Biden over Trump, I am not saying vote blue no matter who. I'm saying I know who the options are. It's Trump or Biden, and I prefer Biden. I prefer Biden on the environment. I prefer Biden on judges. I prefer Biden on taxes. I prefer Biden on diplomacy, et cetera, et cetera. I don't subscribe to vote blue no matter who. Per Tiran says, I would rather give in this format. Brian Watson says, keep it up. Mike Henderson says, if anyone ever says the economy is great because the stock market is up, we have 16 million people unemployed and the stock market is going every day. Fair point. These scrolled past me. Miko Suminen says, here's a comparison of deaths between Nordic countries and the US, if that serves a purpose for you, David. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so yeah, that is interesting. And so we've got confirmed deaths and daily confirmed deaths. Total confirmed deaths and daily. The US has more of both. Now is this per population? It doesn't seem to be per population, and it's a log scale. I don't like this data, guys. This is not, that's nasty data. I don't think that that's the right visualization for me. Okay, let me say thanks to a few other Patreon patrons. Let me say thank you to Floopy Noopy Noops Esquire, who is new patron number 39 today. Alfarius Omegon is new patron number 40. Ms. Marquette is new patron number 41. Alex Stevenson is new patron number 42. We're skipping membership today. I didn't freeze. I'm not even allowed to talk about membership today. We're only talking about Patreon. Alex Stevenson is patron number 42. James Rainey is new patron 43. Ringo is new patron 44. AC is new patron number 45. Ian Cooper is new patron number 46. Sandria Guest is number 47. Judith Rice is new patron number 48. Yarrow Studio is 49. Lisa MW is number 50. Luna Kilwinawi, oh boy, is new patron number 51. Alicia Baker is number 52. And Molly Curran is number 53. Thanks so much, guys. Very much appreciate it. It's a beta test. Very much beta. I'd actually call it an alpha test. We are just doing Patreon today. Also want to say thanks to Fizz Weary for subscribing over on Twitch, and Dino Sorcal, who says, who is the guy with the eye patch? This is the eye patch guy. This is Congressman Dan Crenshaw, who was interviewed 2 days ago, I guess it was, by Joe Rogan. The room is starting to fill up, and we are getting closer and closer to today's White House press briefing. Let's see if Donald Trump has tweeted any update. Nope, still scheduled for 6 p.m. as near as I can tell. I will not be with you for the full briefing today. Being Thursday, I am going to have to cut out a little early because I've got there's this great French bistro that I go to dinner at on Thursdays. And obviously I'm kidding. I'm not leaving my house, but I have a few things going on. So I will stay as long as I can. Hopefully they get started pretty soon. Raphael M says, I'm a member on the website, Twitch Prime, and now on Patreon. Keep up the great work. Thanks, Raphael. Helen Frater says, member from the UK, I feel for you regarding the mental health of your current president. He is a nut job, to be frank. Suffragium says, please elaborate. The WHO is partial to China. Listen, I don't know that we can trust the data out of China. I just don't. I'm questioning whether we can at this point. That's all. And I am not really ready to take a stronger position than that. Henrik Mullen says, you are my guilty pleasure evening entertainment. Why guilty pleasure? That makes it sound bad. Makes this sound like Tiger King. Adrian Strecker says, I love the idea of you going on Rogan again. If so, could you talk to him about having Sam Cedar on too? That would be awesome for progressives. Zip J says, you should develop a Trump drinking game. Maybe take a drink when he says tremendous. I'm pretty sure any kind of drinking games are not allowed. Certainly on Twitch, or maybe it's you can't, like drinking for subscriptions is not allowed. I'm going to stay away from any drinking related stuff. I don't know that it's the right move for my channel. Name Withheld says, hey, David, great show. I'm not a doctor, but COVID seems like a very aggravated form of COPD. Research it more. Don't take my word. Beverly Weber says, just joined your Patreon. Love good content. Thank you. Thank you, Beverly. Jenna Nix says, why does Alberta oil always get left out of the topic of trade? U.S. empire and Koch interest has shaped Canadian politics for decades. Your military at the border, Trump's rhetoric and exclusion scares me. Is that irrational? Fear of Trump is never irrational. I don't know enough about the Alberta oil situation to really comment intelligently. Lorenzo Carrillo says, we are in a fight for our lives. The incompetency of Donald Trump and the GOP is tearing our country to shreds. And one day your unborn children and grandchildren will pay for this mess. No joke. This is real. Bulkier writer says, do you think some of the primaries were rigged? Kyle Kulinski flirted with the idea. I don't have evidence that makes me believe that at this point in time. Chad Derkowitz, a real Chad. By that, I mean literally a real Chad. The Arizona governor isn't taking this seriously. Most businesses are still open. Yeah, I have a bunch of friends in Arizona, and many of them, well, in fact, I know several people who recently moved there, and I'm hearing the exact same thing, and it is very, very ugly. Very, very ugly. Let me thank a few other new patrons. Jason Kaiser is new member number 54. There's few things better than a Kaiser roll. I don't know if there's any familial background there. Aiden Bouchard is new patron number 55 today. Tina Ross is new patron number 56. Phaedra Keat is new patron number 57. Lance Smith is number 58 today. And Harold Powers is number 59. I think I have a few other new patrons to thank. Phantom Jam is number 60 today. It's an all Patreon stream. Lunograss is number 61. Corey Miner is number 62. Seth Bennell II, is number 63. Jonathan Salada is new patron number 64. Tim Arnold is number 65. W. Calhoun is new patron 66. And Team Aiken is number 67 today. We are 2/3 of the way to today's goal. Amazing stuff. Okay. Other super chats coming in as we stand by for the president. Tony Herring says, shouldn't the president be more like the star quarterback rather than a cheerleader on the sidelines? I'm surprised people aren't pointing this out more. Yeah, I don't need the president to be so front and center when it comes to coronavirus response. I would want the president essentially standing by respectfully and letting the doctors speak. If that were the case, we would have heard from Anthony Fauci earlier this week rather than Donald Trump cutting him off about chloroquine. In fact, let me see if I can find, this should never happen. Let me find the video for you. Trump, Fauci, chloroquine question. This happened, I think it was on Tuesday. Where is that? Trump, Fauci, maybe it's just Trump, Fauci, chloroquine. I can find it. Where was that? I'm having trouble finding it right now. But in any case, earlier this week, Donald Trump interrupted and told a reporter to stop asking that question when Anthony Fauci was asked, what do you think about chloroquine? Of course, Anthony Fauci should have been allowed to answer. A sensible president would have allowed it. JR says, An aside, what is it about chess you find so attractive? I've been wanting to learn for a while, and now is probably a good time. You know, I couldn't really say. I enjoy playing it. It's completely different than my day-to-day work. So I've just gotten into it the last year and a half or so. Let's see here. Stephen Kenneth Destiny Bennell asks, how much will it cost me for you to crap on Destiny? I am not going to start criticizing, people on YouTube whose content I haven't even watched. Gudamine subscribes. Andrew Hodge says, please turn the Crenshaw analysis into a segment. It is, in fact, a segment version of what I just talked about with Dan Crenshaw is now a YouTube clip, 14 minutes long, which is available for sharing and disseminating. Stan Sprinkle says, please pull Dan Crenshaw bit out as its own video. I just did. C. Cruz says you should add nasty question for bingo. We had it, I believe it is on there, or we had it for a while. I am a NICU RN. Do you know how many babies have families with zero insurance? The state ends up paying for them, so I have no problem with Medicare for all. Very important point. When people like Dan Crenshaw say Medicare for all would explode demand, well, it would shift a lot of it from emergency rooms to primary care, from acute treatment to preventive treatment. It's a very, very bad argument. Let me say thank you to Shaggy 8-Ball. Shaggy 8-Ball is new patron number 68 today. Chris Reuter is new patron number 69. Lawrence Burns is new patron number 70 today. David Ross Mann is new patron number 71. Unvexed is new patron number 72 today. Adele Burbridge is new patron number 73. Gulliver Brown is new patron number 74. Peter Furicchia is new patron 75. And Kimberly Smith is new patron number 76. People are starting to file into the press briefing room. We see a lot of masks today for sure. And I guess we're sort of getting close to the start of today's briefing. Matrix asks, what software do I use for my streams? I use Streamlabs OBS. It's free, and it's quite good. Connor Brenner says, this is what drives me insane about Crenshaw. He's so disingenuous, and his arguments are always in bad faith. I hate that Pete Davidson apologized to him and gave him this platform he now enjoys. I actually know nothing about that. I'm not familiar with that. Keaton Klepper says, are you a constructivist, realist, or liberal in political science? Hybrid. I've studied all three, and I am a hybrid. Andy Johnson says, take the like button to the cleaners, folks. Thanks. Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, remember, the likes and the subscribes are free. Free, completely free. They are as free as Jim Acosta's questions to Trump are nasty questions. So remember to pound the like button and pound the subscribe button. It really helps us. Andrew Morgan has sent a super chat. Timothy S. says, all the ads I get from your channel are from Epoch Times. Yeah, a bunch of people have been telling me about that. Of course, we have very little control over that. Sven Olsen has subscribed. Paul J.M. says, ¿Dónde está el Cheeto? Where is the Cheeto? He's late as usual. Late as usual. Gordon Cook says, hey, David. Brody Andrew Mulligan says, is COVID-19 affecting your garden and fresh bistro tomato? No. So I just put in a very strong, powerful order for a bunch of gardening stuff. I'm actually just, we could be days from me starting to do planting. So here in Boston, I am ready to plant outdoors radishes, carrots, and snow peas. All will be planted outdoors very, very powerfully. Indoors, I'm about to start tomatoes, both red and yellow, grape or cherry? Cherry tomatoes, a variety of herbs, and what else am I starting inside? Tomatoes. Oh, and some spicy peppers I'm going to be starting inside. because it's still a little early to move those outdoors. My horticulturist friend said Mother's Day. Mother's Day is when you can move a lot of those outside. So we're going to get that going. I've been looking at it very strongly. And now the only thing is, I need a cubic yard of soil. And I think that the bags are usually 3/4 of a something. So I need, my friend said I would need 36 bags of soil, which is nuts. So I need to call a landscaper and say, can you just bring me, like with a some kind of truck? Can you bring me a full cubic yard of soil? Because that's what I'm going to need for my raised beds. Okay, let me thank a few other people. Big thank you to, oh boy, I hope I pronounced this correctly. Oh no, okay, this is simple. Samantha Sabatino is new patron number 77 today. Vanessa Hendricks is number 78. Andrea Fiondo is number 79. Pedro Miramon is number 80. MJ Pritchett is patron number 81. Brian Kortner is number 82. Mushrooms is number 83. Oh boy. Dina Ray is patron number 84. Black Eyed Dilly is new patron number 85. Stress Nugget is number 86. Michael Turner is number 87. Jenna Kashmiri is number 88. And David Cloran is number 89. Guys, we're getting dangerously close to 100 new patrons today, which would be bonkers. Absolutely, completely bonkers. Okay, The Apprentice says, I hear it's amazing when the famous purple stuffed worm in Flapjaw Space with the tuning fork does a raw blink on Harakiri Rock. I don't know a thing about that. I really couldn't tell you. Thomas says, what war do you think Biden will start in 2021? I don't think so. I just don't think so. Alan says, are you still doing chess games? Yeah, we haven't done a tournament for a little while, but I am still playing chess myself. Catherine Eiler has subscribed on YouTube. Let's see here. Stephen Kenneth Destiny Benell says, how much for a Destiny debate over Medicare for all? I don't know. Chris K says, are we starting soon? You know, I certainly hope so. People are filing in. We've got Jim Acosta here. We have another reporter. She actually kind of looks like Libby something from Washington Post, but I don't think that's who that is. And we've got our friend from Bloomberg here. And I forget this guy's name. But yeah, it does look like we're getting ready to start soon. Let's see if Trump has updated his Twitter. No, still scheduled for 6 p.m. as far as I know. So we'll see how that all goes. Thanks to Krieg Saint for signing up on YouTube. Samantha Sabatino says, I'm here for my daily dose of nasty questions. Thank you, Deepak. Thank you. Stu Guy says, do you think Joe Biden likes Cheers? I really couldn't tell you. G. Bradbury says, is it fair to say the U.S. is not really a democracy as long as lobbyists and special interest groups can basically buy elections? Well, the U.S. is actually categorized as a flawed democracy. So in a sense, it is true that we are not a full democracy. Foo Rocker says, loving the constant insight. Keep up the good work. Emmett says, David, my keyboard is broken from pounding the subscribe button, and this super chat is costing me my keyboard replacement money. # worth it. I have been recommended very strongly. Someone once saw in a behind the scenes video that I have this wireless keyboard, and it's terrible. It's really not a comfortable keyboard to type on. And a bunch of people wrote to me saying, David, you really need a mechanical keyboard. And I am now considering a mechanical keyboard very, very strongly. And a lot of people with different opinions about which is the right one. And it would be great to have a wireless, because the thing is, my computer is kind of far. So the great thing about this is it's wireless. I also have a wireless mouse. I would be more inclined to get a mechanical keyboard if I could get a good wireless one. But they are, as people are pointing out, they are kind of loud. They may not be appropriate they may be uncouth or not decorous for live streams. So that's something I definitely am going to have to think about. Okay. Other I've got a bunch of other people to thank here. Gabrielle Steinman is new patron number 90 today. Thanks, Gabrielle. David McKnight is new patron number 91. Guys, we may be able to do it. Pavid Dackman is new patron number 92. Zoe Ferguson is number 93. Ben Cohn is number 94. Matt Nagel is number 95. Svend Olsen is number 96. Eva Feller is number 97. And that is it. We are 3 patrons away. Can you imagine? 3 patrons away from 100. 100 is a big, big number. It's not millions or billions, but it's certainly a big, big number. Oh, okay. If you were just joining me, I'm realizing that there are people who are now joining because it's again the top of the hour. We were originally scheduled for a 5 p.m. live stream. It was postponed until 6 p.m. here on the East Coast. And it is now 6 p.m. It is, in fact, now 6:02 p.m. So we anticipate that this is going to get started any moment. We don't know anything about why it's been postponed. Again, we will just sort of run through the numbers very, very quickly. The official number of coronavirus cases globally is just shy of 1.6 million, and we are sadly approaching 100,000 deaths. The United States continues to be number 1 with more than 3 times as many cases as any other country. We are up to 1,700 deaths today. Yesterday, we had 1,940. It would be great if we could see a reduction. Still many hours left in the day, and it is unclear if that's going to happen. The official full numbers here, 463,000 cases, 16,500 deaths. New York and New Jersey, by far leading the pack. Michigan is seeing pretty significant acceleration in cases. So are we here in Massachusetts. Of course, we are testing a lot. And the COVID-19 IHME model has not been updated today. The latest data that we have still expects a peak formally 3 days from today on April 12th. And it expects 60,000 deaths in this first wave of the coronavirus. A few things that we talked about earlier, and I would encourage you to check these out. One is that there is more and more information that obesity is a major COVID-19 risk factor. That's an article you can check out on Reuters by Geert de Klerk. We need to be increasingly mindful of the second wave of COVID-19 that is likely coming our way. Many articles about that, including this one in The Lancet by Shung-King Xu, which I encourage you to check out. We are trying to get more information about Sweden. A lot of right-wingers very excited about Sweden's more libertarian policy, but they do officially have nearly a 10% death rate right now. And there is information about the possibility of the tuberculosis vaccine maybe being effective in bolstering the body's immune system, not as an actual vaccination against coronavirus, but potentially as something that can boost the immune system, not in a crazy way, but enough that it may make the immune system more resistant to coronavirus. And we are tracking that very, very closely. Okay, let me say thank you to, I think we're about to crush 100. This is going to be beautiful. Okay, Bradley Ward is new patron number 98 today. Wait a second. Did I thank Bradley already? No, I didn't. Catherine Eiler is new patron number 99. And I am thrilled to say that Connor Brenner is new patron number 100. And we're continuing. David Balfour is new patron number 101. Armin Pexavim is new patron number 102 today. Darren Clark is new patron number 103. Zachary Winston is new patron number 104. And Christopher Hellstrom is new patron number 105. You know, I've got to thank those 3 people who emailed me yesterday and said, David, just try doing a patron goal. Just try doing a patron goal, because you might have saturated membership a little bit. People can get in at only $1 on Patreon. It could work. You might be able to get 100 new patrons in one stream. And we did it. We did it. Now we just have to suffer through Trump's lies for 40 minutes. Okay. I am not yet seeing any updates about the scheduling. I see some people in the chat wondering if this has been further delayed. I don't believe that it has. And judging from the activity in the room, it does seem like we are getting closer to the start. Okay. Somebody said 6:30. Do we have any actual announcements that say 6:30? Because I'm not finding anything that says it's 6:30 today. I'm still seeing 6 o'clock. Are people just trolling me, maybe? Nobody really knows. Okay. I think we are still scheduled. Little bit of an announcement. Trump has corona. That delayed it. I don't think so. Per CNN. Interesting. Okay. Very good. Oh, you know what? Actually, I'm going to need to, as many of you know, I'm working out of a home studio. I'm actually going to need to do something to a couple of systems that I have here if this is not starting until 6:30. C-SPAN says 6:30 at the bottom of the screen. Let's see here. This one says starting soon. C-SPAN still says 5 p.m. Okay, I'm going to black myself out momentarily. I'm going to take care of two things, and then I'll be right back to pick it back up. We'll stand by in the room with Jim Acosta momentarily. All right, everybody, I'm back. It is pouring here, and I had a bunch of packages sitting right out front, which unfortunately are soaked. But I did bring them in, refreshed my water, and we are ready to go. Originally scheduled for 5 p.m. Eastern, then rescheduled for 6 p.m. Eastern, then apparently rescheduled for closer to 6:30 p.m. Eastern, and apparently starting very, very soon. Welcome. We are still live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, as we have been now for weeks and weeks of all of this. We will see what sorts of questions we get today from Donald Trump and the entire thing. Let me say a few other thank yous. As many of you know, I have zipped my mouth. I have not mentioned membership today. We're doing a Patreon pledge drive. I want to say thanks to Marcus Friedel, who's patron number 106 today, Jeffrey Alami, who is number 107, Kiana Lee DeLong is number 108. Elizabeth Wilholt is patron number 109. Carolyn Chasteen is number 110. Heather Donaldson is number 111. And Dave Campbell is number 112. Thanks to all of you. Very much appreciate that support. Okay, there is Dr. Anthony Fauci, Dr. Deborah Birx, a guy I don't recognize. And soon we will likely hear from Donald Trump. Let's see if we have any other feeds in the room. We do. I always prefer the feed where they cut to the reporters when the reporters ask a question. So you may see me switch feeds once we get started. I like to see, the reporter as well, so we know who's saying what. But that should. Hearing some talking in the room there. That should not be a problem. Oh, Trump's coming out already over here. So let's switch over to this one.
Thank you very much, everybody. I'd like to begin by saying that we just completed a meeting with the Secretary of Treasury, Steve Mnuchin, and Secretary of Transportation, Elaine Chao, on proposals regarding the airlines and the airline business. And we're working very closely with a lot of different people. We'll be probably putting out a proposal and giving them some of the details, some of the very powerful details. Over the weekend. It's moving along quickly. The airline business has been hit very hard, as everybody knows. And we are going to be in a position to do a lot to help them so that they keep their employees and they save their businesses. And that'll be taking place, I think you can say, over the weekend. We may even have discussions with some of the airlines or all of the airlines over the weekend. And I think it's going to be a very acceptable package. It's a very big package.
Huge
and
package.
A very acceptable package. It'll be good for our country, good for the airlines, good for a lot of people. Likewise, I just spoke with the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, and the king of Saudi Arabia, King Salman.
More colluding to
we had a
increase oil
big
prices?
talk as to oil production and OPEC and making it so that our industry does well and the oil industry does better than it's doing right now. The numbers are so low that there'll be layoffs all over the world. There'll be certainly layoffs in this country. We don't want that to happen. We built a great energy business in the United States.
We should be off oil.
So we have tens of thousands of jobs. We had a very good talk. We'll see what happens. But as you know, OPEC met today. And I would say they're getting close to a deal. We'll soon find out. So that was a conversation we just had. So we had a busy hour and a half. And let me begin by expressing my sincere gratitude to the American people. Millions of Americans are making profound and difficult sacrifices in their own lives because they know it will save the lives of countless others, and that's exactly what it's doing. You see what's happening and where we are, where we stand, and hopefully we're going to be opening up. We can call it opening very, 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 very soon, I hope. Together, our people are writing one of the most noble chapters in the proud history of our nation. Americans are also encouraged to learn that Boris Johnson, Prime Minister, has been moved out of intensive care. That's a tremendous statement. And we continue to pray for him and his fast recovery. That's a very, very positive development. As the New York metropolitan area continues its battle against the outbreak, the full power of the federal government is there to support them. As you know, the Javits Center has now been fully converted into a 3,000-bed hospital, one of the largest anywhere in the country. And by the incredible professionals, I have to say the Corps of Engineers, what they can do is just incredible. They've done a fantastic job, and they're building nationwide 21 temporary hospitals and care facilities, adding 17,000 hospital beds. And they did that all within a very short period of time. It's incredible what they've done. Army Corps of Engineers and FEMA has been fantastic. Our sweeping airlift operation to keep doctors and nurses supplied with protective equipment. Project Airbridge continues to expand with more than 24 flights already completed and 49 additional flights now scheduled in the near future. So that's been very successful, and that gear and those outfits are being handed out.
Outfits.
As they arrive, they're going directly to point. The American medical system continues to perform beyond our highest expectations, reminding us that the United States is blessed with the most advanced health care and the most skilled healthcare workers anywhere on the planet. Other countries are looking to what we're doing, and our testing operation has now become far and away the most sophisticated and the best anywhere.
Wrong.
And we want to thank all of the heroes on the front lines as they fight to save American lives. We're at the top of the hill.
Remember, fact check, we're 43rd globally in tests per capita.
Downward. In some cases, we've already started that process. Earlier today, I spoke with hundreds of mental health leaders and advocates from around the country to discuss the vital work they're doing. We had the top doctors in the country, some international doctors. Mental health, big factor. Not only has the virus inflicted immense physical suffering on many people, but also mental and emotional suffering as well. Even though we're staying physically apart, no American is alone, and we're all in this together. But the mental health doctors and experts, it's a very great call. It was a very interesting call. They're working very hard. We're also seeing encouraging signs in our race to develop breakthrough treatments and therapies. Pfizer revealed today that it has found a promising new treatment that might prevent the virus from replicating, and that it hopes to begin testing in clinical trials very soon. It's going to be very, very soon. They have great feelings for this particular therapy.
They feel for it.
They think that a lot of good things are happening through the FDA's Coronavirus Treatment Acceleration Program. 19 therapies and treatments are now being tested, and 26 more are in the active planning or clinical trials. So we have 19 therapies being tested currently, and 26 more are in the active planning for clinical trials. That's a big statement. That's
elements of clinical
trials for Gilead's anti-rival drug remdesivir.
It's not an anti-rival.
Continue, and the company has also
antiviral.
expanded emergency use for new patients, getting good early results, by the way. The companies that manufacture hydroxychloroquine are massively ramping up production. As you know, many people are recommending strongly Z-Pak be added, the Z-Pak, and also zinc. And the federal government continues to build our stockpiles and distribute millions of doses for doctors to use.
MSNBC broke in when he mentioned zinc yesterday with a doctor saying, don't listen to this.
Pleased to inform you, we're just having a lot of good things are happening, but we'll have to see how that all works out. But we've purchased and we have stockpiled millions and millions of doses.
Hydroxy.
We're distributing it. Some states want it very badly. Michigan, we just sent a lot to Michigan and other areas. I'm reporting today that we passed 2 million tests completed in the United States, first time, most anywhere in the country. It's a milestone for our country. It's a milestone anywhere. Nobody's done anywhere close. Our tests are highly sophisticated and highly accurate. At the same time, we're making important progress on the economic front.
I do need you guys just to remember, we are 43rd in testing globally per capita.
We'll explain new steps that we're taking to ensure American workers swiftly receive unemployment and paid leave benefits, and that employers protect the health and safety of all workers, including essential workers on the job, working very, very closely with workers and with employers. To provide further economic relief, the Federal Reserve announced this morning that it will provide up to $2.3 trillion in support to businesses, states, and local governments. $600 billion in loans will be available for mid-sized businesses with up to 10,000 employees, and $500 billion will be available for states, counties with over 2 million residents, and cities with a population of over 1 million. My administration is also working with Congress to replenish the very successful, incredibly successful, the way it's going, Paycheck Protection Program, which is allowing hundreds of
Almost no one has received money yet.
to keep their workers on the payroll, meaning it'll keep those businesses open. We need both Democrats and Republicans to come together to get this the legislation completed, and it looks like it's on its way, but we need both. And it should be for that are working for the workers. And if you look and you see, we have a lot of people that are affected by that, and it's a very positive development. So we have to get a bipartisan approval of that, and hopefully that'll happen today. The Department of Education is also announcing the availability of more than $6 billion in emergency grant funding to assist college students impacted by the cancellation of classes and the suspension of housing. A lot of people had a lot of things suspended. Housing is one of them. Previously, we waived student loan payments for 6 months. So student loan payments have been waived for 6 months, and we'll discuss it after that, may go further. Although this medical war has separated our citizens for a period of time, it's also united our entire nation. I think I can say, like almost never before, Americans are moving forward with common purpose and shared resolve, determined to vanquish the virus and lift our nation to even greater heights. We are supremely confident in the magnificent future that awaits the American people.
Right.
And with that, before I invite our Vice President, our great Vice President, and Gene Scalia to speak, we'll take a few questions, and then I'm going back into negotiations on oil and on airlines.
Wow.
Yeah, please.
Conversation with President Putin and the King.
Yeah, I had a very good conversation.
Did you organize that call, and do they?
Let's just see if we're getting the.
Yeah, please.
Conversation with President Putin and the King.
Yeah, I had a very good conversation.
I'm just looking for a feed where we see the reporters.
Gene Scalia to speak. We'll take a few questions, and then I'm going back into negotiations on oil and on airlines. Yeah, please.
Conversation with President Putin and the King.
Yeah, I had a very good conversation.
Did you organize that call, and do they understand the problems they're causing with the oil output?
Yeah. No, there's so much production, nobody even knows what to do with it. That's how it's working. And Saudi Arabia and, as you know, Russia, it's well known that we're producing a lot, and they were perhaps fighting with each other over the production and the amount of oil being produced. And frankly, there's not enough room to even store it. Our storage is now full, going to be very soon. Our strategic national storage is, I said, this is a great time to fill it up, load it up with oil that frankly is
They're flying there?
At pricing that nobody's ever seen before. I don't think we've seen this probably since the 1950s. That was with big dollars. So we'll see what happens. The conversation was very good. They're getting close to a deal. That's OPEC and many other countries outside of OPEC, and we'll see what happens.
Still fighting with each
No,
other?
I think they were getting along very well. We had a very good call. I think it was a very good call. We're going to see what happens, but it was a very good call. They'll probably announce something either today or tomorrow, one way or the other. Could be good, could be not so good, but I think one way or the other. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, Mr. President, how could the administration discuss the possibility of reopening the country when the administration does not have an adequate nationwide testing system for this virus? Don't you need a nationwide testing system for the virus before you reopen the country?
We have a great testing system. We have the best, right now, the best testing system in the world. But there are certain sections,
Right now.
there are certain sections in the country that are in phenomenal shape already. Other sections are coming online. Other sections are going down. And we, in addition to that, are giving out millions of tests, and every day we're doing it exponentially.
Exponentially. Remember, we are 43rd globally per capita in tests
Of our country and do massive testing. It's not necessary, but it would be a good thing to have.
Don't you need that, though, Mr. President, to make sure people are safe going back to work? You don't want to send people back to the workplace.
We want to have it, and we're going to see if we have it. Do you need it? No. Is it a nice thing to do? Yes. We're talking about 325 million people, and that's not going to happen, as you can imagine. And no, it would never happen with anyone else either. Other countries do it, but they do it in a limited form. We'll probably be the leader of the pack. Please.
Mr. President, what do you say to the 16 million Americans, more than 16 million Americans who have lost their jobs in the last 3 weeks, and fear that the economy won't just bounce back, like you said?
Well, I think the economy is going to do very well. Now, that's just my feeling. It's a strong feeling. I've had good, proper feelings about a lot of things over the years, and I think we're going to do well. We're doing it looks like we're at the lower end of the curve in terms of death, which is a terrible word, a terrible, dark word that we've experienced like nobody's ever seen before in this country. I mean, we have numbers that are terrible, but when you look at the lower levels of 100, lower prediction levels of 100, 120,000 to 220,000, or if we did nothing, up to 2.2 million people, we're looking at a much lower level than the level of, I hope, than the level of 100,000. So we're going to see. We're going to have to. You can never do anything about the people that lost their loved ones and lost their friends, and I mean the great friendships. And I'm not sure a lot of people will ever be the same. But I think our country, from an economic standpoint, will end up being stronger than ever. We have tremendous stimulus. We have tremendous stimulus plans. We have things in the works that are going to really, I think, fire the country. I think that what's going to happen is we're going to have a big bounce rather than a small bounce.
Trump's language is like it's over, like we've won.
And I think, honestly, I think our country is going to be back from an economic standpoint. Again, you can never replace the people that were lost, and to their families, certainly you can never do a thing like that. But we will have succeeded in many ways, hopefully keeping the number way below our minimum numbers. And also, from an economic standpoint, we met with the mental health people today, and that takes this is taking a tremendous toll mentally on a lot of people. And I think we're going to open up strong. I think we're going to open up very successfully. And I'd like to say even more successfully than before. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Oil is trading today at about $23 a barrel in New York. Where would you want to see the price? Do you want it at $30, $40, $50 a barrel?
Well, I want to see it where there's a certain market, but I also don't want to see it where people have no idea. We'll be opening up areas for storage of oil, massive areas for storage of oil. Because oil today is not selling. And what happened is the virus knocked out 40% of the market. Immediately, you know that, you know the number, 40%. Now, there was a lot of oil, but it was very controllable. All of a sudden, they lost 40%. You look at the roads, you look at the car, you look at what's going on. There's nobody driving. There's no reason for it right now. That'll start coming back. But we are storing millions of barrels of oil that nobody thought would even be possible. Frankly, ships turned out to be a good business for some people because they're filling up tankers, sending them out to sea, and not saying where to go. They're just sitting out there loaded up with oil.
This guy is
so
clueless.
We want to save our energy in this country. We want to make sure that our energy companies, businesses, and employees, workers, remain strong. So that's how I'm involved, and I think that's going to happen. So right now, if you look, you're probably talking 23, 25.
Does
if
anyone
they
know the
announce
name
a
of that
deal, we can
Bloomberg-
get it up. We need a minimum number so the companies don't.
What's the name of that Bloomberg reporter? He's always asking these goading questions to Trump, and I love it.
And we're now energy independent. We could do something where we only used our oil. But I think the long-term benefit is to be able to just go with the market, and it's going to work out. It's all going to work out. If you looked at 3 weeks ago, as you know, as we talked about it, 3 weeks ago and 2 weeks ago, this was catastrophic. I think it's really hitting bottom, and I think that, we've had a bottom, but now at $23 and $25 and probably heading up, At the same time, we save our energy, and we also produce great, cheap energy, and we save our jobs. Yeah.
I want to ask you about the Paycheck Protection Program, because every day we're hearing from small business owners who are telling us that their banks don't know how to access this money.
That's right.
They're trying to apply. They can't figure it out. So where does the fault lie? Does it lie with the banks?
I don't think there's a fault. They're doing record numbers of dollars. They're dealing with many community banks. They're dealing with banks.
Almost no one's gotten the money yet. It's really important to understand. Almost no one's gotten the money yet.
And they're dealing with the bankers. Can't go that quickly, but I'm hearing it's a very, very successful rollout. They did want changes in applications. They want changes in loan requirements, et cetera. But they're taking billions and billions of dollars worth of loans. And in the very near future, the banks will be relieving the money. They'll be paying out the money. Yeah, please.
Sure. Are you still expecting the USMCA to take effect on July 1st? And considering the fact that the auto industry is hurting these days, are you ready to postpone the...
well, we have a deal. Yeah, the deal is with Canada. The deal is with Mexico. We have a deal. And obviously, the deal is different from the standpoint that production will be lower.
From the standpoint.
But we have a deal. It's a signed deal. It's a deal that's one of the worst deals that we've ever had was NAFTA, one of the worst trade deals ever made by any country anywhere. We'll be terminating that. And the new deal is a great deal for our country. So that's something. Now, again, we get hit by the virus, and we'll see where that all goes. But certainly car production is going to be down for a little while. But ultimately, good for our farmers, great for our farmers. We'll be helping our farmers, by the way. We have money going out to our farmers in the pretty near future having to do with, you see what's happened. The farmers got hurt very badly by all of this. People are eating less from the standpoint that there's no restaurants are open, no businesses are open, no hotels are open. They'll start to come back, but we're going to be helping out our farmers. Yeah, please.
All the new auto regulations.
Thank you, sir. Philip Wegman, Real Clear Politics. Earlier, you mentioned Project Skybridge, and we're hearing that through that project, a lot of the PPE that was sent out to other countries is coming back to this country. Do you know when we'll be able to bring a majority of that back? And then, are you frustrated that USAID allowed a lot of that aid to go out the door in the first place? Should they have brought it back?
No, I'm not, because we're in very good shape. You'll be speaking with Mike Pence about this in a little while.
Yeah, there you go.
You look at the hospitals. You look at what's going on. Yesterday I spoke with the governor of Louisiana. I'm saying, do you think we need that extra 1,000 beds that we're in the process of building? We are really in good shape. You're not hearing people are needing ventilators much. In fact, we're going to start helping other countries with ventilators. We're going to end up having a lot of ventilators for future should something happen for hospitals, ideally, to keep and have. But no, I think we're in very, very good shape. We have calls with governors all the time, and the governors are in very good shape now. We have sent billions and billions and billions of dollars between ventilators, equipment, protective equipment, masks. We have 500 million masks coming. 500 million from one group. 500. It'll be 300 million and 200 million over a short period of time. No, I think we're in very good shape. Please.
President, speaking of testing, some experts, including Scott Gottlieb, have talked about 750,000 tests per week being needed before the economy is opened. Can you address that? Do you agree with those numbers? If not, how many tests per week do you think we should have before the economy is open?
I don't like using the word needed because I don't think it's needed, but I think we're going to try and hit a number like that. That's a very high number, but we're going to be trying to hit it, and we probably might be able to do that. Please, go ahead.
Prove that, sir.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, the Democrats pushed for more rescue money for states and hospitals, which are complaining that they needed to fight the coronavirus pandemic. Do you think hospitals and states need this money? Would you support?
I do, and I do support something, but I support it for the next phase. It's much simpler in the next phase, whether that phase is infrastructure or whatever. So I'm going to leave you now with Mike Pence and with Eugene Scalia, and if you would, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow. We have I think, a lot of very big news to report. We've had a tremendous day between, I believe, what's happening with the energy industry, and I believe what's happening with airlines. I look forward to seeing you. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
still have not gotten the evidence of widespread voter fraud.
Wow. Trump just wandering off. I love how Burke
Good afternoon,
stands,
everyone.
but Fauci just sits when Trump leaves.
At the present moment, we have now cleared more than 2 million tests across the country. And I'm pleased to report we're testing more than 100,000 people a day now. But we're working around the clock to scale up the new types of tests that the FDA has approved in record time. And every American can be confident that we'll continue to build out that structure going forward for the weeks ahead and the months ahead. At the present moment, there's more than 450,000 Americans who have tested positive for the coronavirus, and sadly, more than 16,000 Americans have lost their lives. And as President Trump just said, our hearts go out to the families that have lost loved ones. And I want to assure you that all of us working at every level understand these are not numbers, these are lives. And our heartfelt condolences during this heartbreaking week.
Pence seems a little like slowed down today.
And family that's lost a loved one to the coronavirus. It has been a difficult week. But as Dr. Birx will reflect in just a few moments, as we look at the data literally on a county-by-county basis every day, we continue to see evidence that in areas where the epidemic has impacted most, the greater New York City area, Louisiana, the Detroit metro, the Denver metro, we continue to see evidence of stabilization. And it appears, as Dr. Birx suggests, that we are close to the peak in each of those areas so impacted. We also express gratitude and appreciation for the people of California and Washington State, who continue to be low and steady in the number of cases that are emerging there. We're watching the Chicago metro area, we're watching the Boston metro area, and as Dr. Birx will discuss, we just continue to urge every American to put into practice the President's coronavirus guidelines. Because all evidence indicates from the West Coast to what we're beginning to see in major outbreak areas on the East Coast, it's working, America. And it's working because you're doing it. And we encourage you onward in that. Today, the White House Coronavirus Task Force met, but most of the team also met with Republicans and Democrats in two separate conference calls of the United States Senate. Secretary Mnuchin, our health experts, Admiral Polovchek, Dr. Hahn joined us as we discussed a broad range of issues. The Treasury Secretary touched on the Paycheck Protection Program, now in day 5, reporting $125 billion has been approved so far. 30,000 new individual users and 3,900 lenders are participating. We also discussed that the Treasury Department will issue a new frequently asked question document tonight, an FAQ as they're known, to clarify how seasonal businesses can participate in the Paycheck Protection Program as well. With regard to direct payments to Americans, the Treasury Secretary assured senators, and we assure every American, that we remain on the timetable where the first payments in direct deposits will go out by the end of next week. For the average family of 4, that'll be $3,400 in direct financial support, and will no doubt be welcome news. Anyone who is interested in additional information on any of these programs can go to treasury.gov or sba.gov. Since we last spoke, I spoke with Governor Laura Kelly of Kansas, Governor Andy Beshear of Kentucky, also spoke to governors of Texas and Rhode Island. I assured each one of them, as we continue to work through the process of making sure that we distribute the resources at the point of the need, is that at President Trump's direction, our objective working through FEMA is to make sure that states have what they need when they need it. And to see the progress that we've made, the President just reflected on in New York and New Jersey, Louisiana, and the partnership we forged with governors in those states, California and Washington State before, we trust gives confidence to governors and leaders of states across the country, most importantly, our dedicated healthcare workers, that we will be there to meet that need should that need arise. At the present moment, FEMA reports the President has approved 54 major disaster declarations, and states around the country have stood up 29,000 National Guard, 11,000 of which are fully funded by the federal government under Title 32. Also, speaking of our military, at the present moment, we received a report today from the Department of Defense that 4,100 active duty military medical personnel have been deployed in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. And they are personnel that are working on the ground at the Javits Center, working, of course, at the USNS Comfort ship. But because at the present moment, the utilization of both of those temporary facilities has been fairly modest. The DOD actually worked with the city of New York to establish what amounts to a uniform temp service. They called it the bullpen. And today they literally deployed from the ship and from the Javits Center 75 medical personnel to relieve dedicated healthcare workers within the hospital system in the city of New York, and we'll continue to do that. We're going to make sure those federal temporary hospital and Javits Center is fully staffed. We'll make sure the USNS Comfort is staffed. But the physicians,
I'd love to get to the doctors. I don't know about you guys.
Are going to also be deployed across the city to bring much needed relief to our healthcare workers in our system. From the VA standpoint, we've opened up VA facilities in New York City, East Orange, New Jersey, Detroit, Michigan, and we are opening up the VA facility to coronavirus patients in Shreveport, Louisiana. Finally, I mentioned that today we exceeded more than 2 million tests that have been performed across the country. And also, literally, working with the U.S. Public Health Service, states around the country have stood up hundreds of drive-through testing sites. And just this week, FEMA and the U.S. Public Health Service announced that we will give an option to states to transition from a federal testing site, dozens of which have been assembled around the country, to a state-managed site.
Yeah. From what we know, they're actually starting to pull funding for the federal testing sites. It's not quite as ginger snaps and waterfalls as he's talking about.
Areas that they think are most important, but we're also processing requests for continued federal participation in states from New Jersey to Louisiana to Illinois, Colorado, and Texas. And we want to assure people in communities all across the country that we'll continue to partner with states to the extent that they prefer us to be a part of it. With regard to the air bridge, 3 flights were scheduled to arrive today in Chicago, New York, and Dallas-Fort Worth. 49 flights are scheduled over the next 3 days. And we continue to work supplies. We continue to literally leave no stone unturned around America and around the world. We're literally in the process of acquiring tens of millions of supplies that are being brought into a distribution system organized out of FEMA and focused on the areas most in need. We're also bringing real innovation, and at the White House Coronavirus Task Force today, we tasked the FDA and CMS to review the feasibility of allowing hospital workers to use cloth gowns for performing procedures. It was observed that 20 years ago, most physicians and most surgeons wore cloth gowns every day and laundered them, but it's transitioned to disposable gowns, and we're working very rapidly in the next 24 hours, and we'll have guidance for hospitals and healthcare workers about the ability to in effect recycle gowns and make sure that we have the supplies that we need. As the President mentioned today, the President and the First Lady and I and my wife Karen we're honored to be a part of a conference call with mental health professionals from all around the country. And we know while there are families that are struggling with the coronavirus and struggling with heartbreaking loss to the coronavirus, we understand this is a very challenging time for every American, but most especially Americans who struggle.
Yeah, hey, that's a good point people are making. Remember when 2 weeks ago it was all about this machine to sanitize masks? Nobody said a word about it, and now they're just talking about sending millions of masks. Do we know what came of that? Is anybody actually doing it?
And we've also issued guidance for using technology to remain connected to social support groups. And we just urge everyone who may be feeling an emotional burden or a vulnerability during this time to reach out to the many resources that are there and to know that you're not alone, that we're with you and we'll get through this, and we'll get through this together. So despite heartbreaking losses that continue this week in communities from New York to New Jersey to Louisiana, there are signs of progress and hope abounds. The reality is that we see new projections from the experts. And if the projections are right, it's because it's working, America. It's because the American people are putting into practice the social distancing, caring for their neighbors and their loved ones and their family members, and putting their health first. And we just want to urge every American to continue to put those principles and guidelines into practice every day. With that, I'm going to invite Dr. Deborah Birx up for an update.
Please.
And Dr. Fauci will hear from the Secretary of Labor, and we'll take a few questions.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. So I wanted to cover today not only what we're seeing across the United States, but some of the testing data to assure from the prior question, if we're testing, I'm sure you're following our numbers every day, and the amount we're going up, about 118,000 to 120,000 per day are being tested. So we're way over the 750,000 per week currently.
Remember, 3 weeks ago, they were talking about millions a week. They just they completely changed what the bar is, and then they're like, we killed it.
Have about 75% of that test data in now. About 1.5 million of those tests have been reported in. I just wanted to give you some ideas because sometimes we think that we're only testing in the hospitals, that this should give you an idea of the quantity and the types of tests that have occurred. So we've tested over 200,000 young people up to age 25. They have about 11% positivity rate. Over 500,000 people between 25 and 45. They have a 17% positive rate. Now remember, in order to get tested, you have to have symptoms. So this gives you an idea of the number of people who have symptoms that are not infected with coronavirus. Another nearly 500,000 people between 45 and 65, their positivity rate is 21%. Another nearly 200,000 between 65 and 85, 22% positive, and a small group of about 30,000+ individuals over 85, and they have a 24% positivity rate. And so this gives you an idea of we're testing throughout all age categories. I see a lot of men in the audience today. I just want to remind them about the importance of health care. Of the male-female ratio, 56% of the people who are tested are female, 16% positive, 44% male, 23% positive. So again, it gives you an idea about how men often don't present in the healthcare delivery system until they have greater symptomatology. This is to all of our men out there, no matter what age group. If you have symptoms, you should be tested and make sure that you are tested. We appreciate you engaging in that, and also really recognizing the issues about comorbidities and making sure that we're addressing those. I had a series of great calls with about 17 states that are in our more rural areas, specifically around our indigenous people and tribal nations. It was a very reassuring call, and we are testing across the country. We do have about 63% of states that have less than 10% positive despite significant testing. And within the indigenous peoples and tribal nations, they're seeing the same thing that we're seeing across the nation. Increased issues among those with comorbidities and those of elderly, but also issues in nursing homes. And so they are testing, many of these states are still capable of doing full contact tracing. And so they've been doing contact tracing from nursing home outbreaks and other outbreaks. It really gives us a clear impression of no matter what we do in the future, we need to really ensure that nursing homes have sentinel surveillance. And what do I mean by that? That we're actively testing in nursing homes, both the residents and the workers at all times. That is where, and that's how we saw this at the beginning. That's what we saw in Washington State. And that's what we're seeing in many of the states that have very low case attack rates. The other thing that I want to leave you with, I mean, we certainly know how desperate and difficult the situation has been in New York over the last few weeks. And we've been telling and talking about how this would be the week that would be most difficult because of the large proportion of cases that are coming from the New York metro area. What's been encouraging to us, those early states outside of Washington and California, which still have extraordinarily low attack rates because of their level of mitigation, all of the new areas that are having new increasing cases, we talked about them yesterday, Washington and Baltimore and the Philadelphia metro area. That includes Camden, Wilmington, and the counties around Philadelphia. We're seeing that the case numbers, what we'll get to as far as attack rates, we talked about 1 in 7 in 1,000 in New York that are being measured. These are coming in even with their progress up their curve in the 1 to 2 per 1,000 range, showing that when you start mitigation early, it has a very different impact. All of this data is coming together, the testing rates, the seropositivity, the age groups, who really needs hospitalization, ICU, the innovative pieces coming from, we heard a great report from Louisiana this morning on the phone call where they talked about a minimum now of 40% of people coming off of ventilators alive and leaving the hospital. This is very encouraging to us. Really shows amazing progress clinically at each of these hospitals and the real lessons what we're learning and sharing across hospitals. But really shows us that the original outbreaks were very large, but the newer ones that we talk about in Washington and Philadelphia and Baltimore, it looks like their attack rates and the attack rates in Denver and some of these other states that we have been talking about are much lower than New York and New Jersey. And this gives us hope about really understanding how to integrate this information together, not dealing with a model, but the real life cases that are occurring and understanding how to move forward together to really have a different future. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. So just reflecting about what we've been doing over the last few days, remember last weekend when we made the forecast that this would really be a bad week? As I mentioned yesterday and the day before, it is, in the sense of deaths, a bad week. In fact, every day there seems to be a record of number of deaths compared to the day before. In fact, New York today had, again, another record of, I think the city itself was about 820 plus deaths. But what we were predicting with the increase and the real adherence to the physical separation, the guidelines that the Vice President talks about, the physical separation, at the same time as we're seeing the increase in deaths, we're seeing rather dramatic decrease in the need for hospitalizations. Like I think yesterday was something like 200 new hospitalizations, and it's been as high as 1,400 at any given time. So that is going in the right direction. I say that, and I always remind myself when I say that, that means that what we are doing is working, and therefore we need to continue to do it. I know I sound like a broken record. That's good. I want to sound like a broken record. Let's just keep doing it. I get questions a lot, Dr. Birx and I, about these numbers, the projections that you went from 100,000, 200,000, now down to 60,000. That's a sign that when, as I keep saying, when you take the data you have and you reinsert it into the model modifies. Data is real, model is hypothesis. okay? So that's what you have to do, and that's what I think we're seeing. The other thing that's some just broad general good news from the standpoint of a scientific standpoint, that there are a lot of candidate potential therapeutics that are going into clinical trials now that we're sponsoring at the NIH. The kinds of clinical trials that will give us the answer. Are they safe? Are they effective? And just what is the capability of using them under what circumstances, as prophylaxis, as treatment, in early disease, in late disease. So as the time goes by and we have the public health measures to try and contain this, we're doing an awful lot from a scientific standpoint so that when we do get to next year, next fall, next winter, hopefully we'll have something that we can offer in addition to the very important public health measures.
Going to need
so
that.
I'll be happy to answer questions later.
Mr. Secretary.
So I'm going to mute this guy just because I don't think this is the most interesting guy. I want to play for you guys a voicemail that I received today, disguised to look like a call from where I used to live. It's related to the virus. It's meant to sound like a neighbor checking up on me. Listen to who it is that is calling around. Take a listen.
Hello, my name's Colleen, and I'm a volunteer right out of Northampton, and I was reaching out to my neighbors. We're all sheltering in place, and these are hard times for people. So I was just checking in, and I'm hoping that you and your household are well. I was sharing something that's helped me. It's a nonprofit Bible-based website.
Bible.
And I find a lot of encouragement from the scriptures. And if you check it out, there's even an online study program. And I hope you you can find some comfort for yourself. So again, it's jw.org.
JW.
And
Jehovah's
I hope
Witnesses.
you and your household are doing well, and have a good day.
Yeah. So the Jehovah's Witnesses that normally are hanging out by the subway and stuff with literature are just casually suggesting what I need now, what I need in my life on this holiest of Passover Seder days, imagine, is to go to the Jehovah's Witnesses website, ladies and gentlemen. Needless to say, I will not be calling. I will not be calling. All right, that's it for me today. We will be back tomorrow. Show, stream, all of that stuff. Thanks to everybody who joined me.